All right, let me get the show ready. Plug that in. The time is ticking. Make sure I got everything here. Where's the thing? Oh, there it is. Let me take it back. All right, let me put that here. Put it over there. Start at the beginning. Fantastic. All right. Oh, the Betterment Broadcast presented by Rat Raven. Hello everyone. Let me make this full screens on my side so I don't miss when people jump in, as I tend to do, because the UI screen isn't best, to be honest. Get rid of that. Excellent. This is actually badly made. Anyway, all right, cool. It is actually quite badly made, to be honest. Where are we? Here we go. Let's add this one. Look at that magic, and then we can just click on that. Give me 17 seconds, family, while I look for a shortcut. I think that's done. I think it's done already. I'm going to say yes. If it isn't, what are you going to do? All right, welcome all. This is the Black Bear Broadcast. I'm your host, Rap Raven. This is show 61. So that means there's 61 shows we're attempting to work with Black people to find betterment, which is always good. If you are listening now, tell a friend to tune in, and hopefully they can join in. Like I said, betterment is a collective sport, so it requires everyone to work together. But let us do what we traditionally do when we start this show. We go through the intro. So what is it? I see. After much research, I've unfortunately concluded that currently Black people are collectively inadequate. This is most challenging. By recognizing the fact that when it comes to work as a team, Black people seem to suffer from many historical challenges and many issues, ups and downs, hiccups that needs to be resolved. And hopefully, we can actually find solutions in this particular broadcast or other broadcasts for why that is and how to fix that. But let's go through. So this show is a team-based sports show. So we at some point will be throwing out the link for people to join in. And if you are, we try to make it as pleasant as possible when people join. And how do we do that? Well, by upholding the 4D values, which is discipline, dedication, dignity, and discernment. That's right. These are the 4D values that we try to push out. And this makes communicating very smooth, hopefully, especially when it comes to Black people, helping Black people, Black issues. A lot of anxiety in some of these topics. So we try to make sure that we allow it to flow as harmonious as possible, if possible. Oh yes, very nice. Okay, cool. So can you use descriptive language instead of derogative language? All right, yeah. So what we're saying here is let's try not to use derogative language on the show if possible. We might be playing some clips and maybe one or two words might slip, but that's just for more so research purposes. We definitely don't recommend when we're trying to find solutions to be using colorless language towards each other. And on the screen, if you can pause it in the future time, you can see that there's certain words you can use instead of other words. Feel free to pause this in the future time to see those, and it's on the screen as we speak. Voila, excellento. So that's good. All right, so what is Black Betterment? Black Betterment is Black people helping Black people on Black issues. That's what Black Betterment is. So if you didn't know, now you know. And that means Black Betterment is a lifestyle. So this entire show is about the lifestyle of Black Betterment. That's it. Not rocket science. It's about promoting the practice and lifestyle of Black Betterment, which is Black people helping Black people on Black issues. We're covering a topic today about, we're not there yet, but I'll just bring it in early, about womanism, Black feminism, and white feminism, and feminism as a whole, and the comparisons. And I would really like if experts on the topic would jump in, preferably women, Black women. And if you're an expert, you're interested, you have any things about it, feel free to jump in within half an hour to an hour's time when we send out the link. I as a man don't feel comfortable always talking about women's direct issues, although I might have be educated on certain topics. It's always best to hear the women's opinions and their histories and connections with this particular issue. But the reason I bring it up and is because Black Betterment is actually Black people helping Black people in Black issue. And within some of these sub sets and spin-offs and new variants and updates of feminism and these kinds of things, that same practice goes on within the woman collective. So we will be unpacking that. Excellento. But let me read this because we will be playing videos. And they're not mine. So, or I should say, the shows, I should say. So, I don't want anyone to think I'm stealing content. It's all done for reporting purposes. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. That's what we were doing. Fair use is use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. So we will be using other people's stuff today just to help us understand this very fantastic topic. Now, before we actually hit the actual topic, something I mentioned last week, and I mentioned this week and next week and the week after. And there's a concept that right now Black betterment is a lifestyle, and what the idea is to have tangible solutions for Black issues. That's pretty much what it is. So how can we actually do that? One concept I'm pushing forward is for Black people to come together in fellowships. Whoever they might be on some particular fellowships dedicated to certain things. It could be 20 people, 30 people come together to organize and have meetings about trying to do something. And as many Black people doing that as possible in different fellowships over the world, then you might actually start seeing some changes. And obviously, those fellowships will have impacts on businesses, media, education, or whatever they choose to do. And we can unpack this as time goes by. But just letting you know, because as you know, any kind of concept or idea that comes in my head, I'll just throw it out here for the community. And we can unpack it and talk through it and make it work or not work or stretch and pull and all that good stuff because it's a team-based sport. Right. What's the next one? Next one is air pronoun. We're good now. Okay, so we are now at officially the topic. Voila. So we analyze the difference between womanism, Black / African feminism. Right. So I could talk for days, but for those who feminism. Let me just get the correct. Make sure I don't say anything wrong. So generally, feminism, for those who do know or don't know, or want to know, or have known, but now they know more, is a range. This is Wikipedia, by the way. This is a range of social movements, political movements, and ideologies that aim to define and establish the political, economic, personal, and social equality of the sexes. Now, I think at some point people would have said like to get women on the same equality as everyone else, but by saying equality of sexes, that makes it that it's trying to rectify that there's a balance amongst the sexes. I don't know if that word might vary now that these new ideas are coming out, but I could be wrong. I have to really research that. But yeah, so things like marriage, maternal leave, women's rights, voting, equal pay, property, education, domestic violence, sexual harassment, and these kinds of things. Trying to make sure that the negative aspects there are eliminated, and women have rights and as they deserve. But obviously not yet fully established. And the history of that. Well, so that was a concept. Obviously, as time went by, there was a notice that maybe the feminist movement was speaking for women, but it wasn't inclusive of all women. And as we find with Black betterment, something that we have said, if I can find that thing, let's try to find it. Yes, very good. A very good quote that you should all remember. I think this is very handy. I use it all the time. It keeps me motivated. There's a few quotes that keep me going. One of them is collectively Black people are inadequate, which I find very, very helpful. And also collectively Black people have no friends. These two quotes are what keeps me going. So when you look at the feminist movement, unfortunately, many Black women felt the same. They felt that, we all want to have women to not be beaten up and want to have fair pay and equal rights and voting and just to say in how the world is moving and this good stuff and education. And what they found is, unfortunately, maybe a few of the dominant European white women in power didn't necessarily care for their story, and this is always problematic. And let me not jump in because we've got videos that tell it much more better than me. But many of the women decide to do what I recommend all Black people do, and that is do for yourself. That's what it is. It's a very good solution. It's amazing. And that's the essential what Black betterment is, to be honest. But we're going to go through my fantastic amount of collected videos. These are not my videos. These are from the interweb. And, we're going to go through. So let's start with, let me actually give credit where credit's due, because sometimes when you upload stuff to these actual platform, it just eradicates the name and it just puts my name there, which is bad UX, by the way. I make apps so I can actually say that's bad UX, but it doesn't matter. It's another story for another time. All right, so let's click on the HuffPost one. So let's have a sneak peek on a critique of that. Where are you? There's two here. Which one? So let's start with, I believe this is What is Feminism? If I'm wrong, I'll quickly remix and go back to the beginning like a good DJ. This one?
After Nicki Minaj.
Rewind. So this is we're going to start with white feminism. Now let me remove. If I remove myself, no, doesn't matter. Leave that. All right, cool. So let's make sure your volume is up and you're listening if you're cooking and cleaning. Let's hear what white feminism actually is, according to the HuffPost. Good production by a black womanist, black feminist, and we shall be showing some of that story as well. But just to keep you updated, let's sister keep
the race card.
What's the race card?
White feminism excludes the experiences of basically anyone who's not white, cis, and straight.
Cis is a word that you some might know very well, some might not so much. It's a word that how can you say this without causing even more confusion? I think it's identifying in the body you were born. I could be wrong, as I am many times in life, but if someone is a cis specialist, you can say that. So, I mean, if I was to say, if a man was born a man, he identifies as a man, but that would probably be wrong in some kind of language. I'm sure that would cause many controversy. I'll stop, that's inappropriate. But what I was going to say is, many European white women don't necessarily identify as white feminists. They'll just say feminists. And if they did identify as white feminists, they probably are open white supremacists, and they have no interest in hearing the voices of non-white women. A lot of the original founders of feminism would have actually been white supremacists. Just the time and scope they came out, and it would have made sense for their culture to keep perpetuate that and maintaining that. Which is interesting. But yeah, so that is, if for those who don't know, that is what feminism is, or rebranding as white feminism. Now let's remix of that. This is what is this one? Part 2, white feminism, Huffington Post. Poor labeling by me, so I have no idea. Let's click on it.
Word in certain circles.
What is the dirty word?
Feminist becomes something of a dirty word in certain circles.
Lately, a lot of high-profile women like Shailene Woodley, Meryl Streep,
Don't know who they are. I think one's an actor.
and Marion Cotillard have gone on record saying they are not feminists.
Okay, interesting.
There's even a group called Women Against Feminism.
Right. So now we're showing that there's some women who don't agree with feminism. Now remember, feminism was pushed forward as equal rights for all people. So, but obviously we understand that that might be a starting point, but there might be political movements that take a hold and make people make different choices. One would assume. Let's go.
But what are these women really saying when they declare they aren't feminists?
What they think they're saying is, I don't hate men, I love men.
I don't think women are better than men.
I'm not that kind of woman. You know, the crazy, bra-burning, feminazi kind. I'm a cool woman.
I don't want to put women above men.
For anyone who needs a refresher, this is what feminism means at its core.
Feminist, a person who believes in the social, political, and economic equality of the sexes.
Hating men and being a feminist are actually not connected at all, not even a little bit.
Feminism is about equality of the sexes, but right now, one sex has a lot more power than the other.
Men are not systematically oppressed based on their gender, and that's a fact.
But women are, and that's a fact too.
So if you believe any of the following:
reproductive rights,
equal pay for equal work,
seeing diverse bodies, ethnicities, and gender expressions on screen and in magazines,
providing education to 62 million girls who don't have access to it,
ending sexual violence,
having women in government, having women CEOs,
you know, basic gender equality.
Surprise!
You're probably a feminist.
Feel free to identify or not identify any way you want. But if you say you're not a feminist, at least understand what the term actually means.
And if you think that you're a humanist...
Ziva, we gotta go. We just don't have time for this.
Cool, comedy time. Okay, we can move on. Excellent. Now, okay, so we got through that one. Nice and speedy. Now we're going to move on to people who identify as black feminists. Obviously, sometimes things interchange. things change and all the good stuff. But let's listen to Black Feminists, and this one is by, let me get them right. I don't think I wrote down who it's by, but I'm sure their logo will jump up, which will be good. Oh, the root. There you go.
Most powerful.
Rewind.
Black feminism helps you think about what happens when you're the most powerful chick in the game, you're married to one of the most powerful dudes, and he still won't treat you right because he is intimidated by your power.
All right, so the lady made a statement there about very successful women being with men, and some are intimidated by their success. Interesting. Let's listen on. This is a guide, by the way, for those who are cooking and not looking at the screen, or maybe their phone is broken many places. This is the guide to Black feminism for those who cannot see the screen. Go. The little logo there saying, "Don't forget white women voted for Trump." So there's now a distinction between white versus Black feminism in this particular video. That is not our video. And the lady who is the main orator is Brittany Cooper. Those, I'm sure, is a very famous woman in the circle she's in, and many of you have heard of her and probably follow her on all the social networks. Go!
You describe your relationship with white feminists as complicated. What do you think needs to happen for feminism to be a multiracial prospect?
Yeah, so I want to be real clear that this is not a book where I'm asking Black girls to play nice with white girls. What I want is for Black women to understand patriarchy affects us too, though. We can't have any kind of Black liberation if people aren't talking about Black women and girls. And that doesn't have anything to do with what Becky is or is not doing or saying.
So no movement with Becky?
Look, I think that we got to have strategic solidarities with white women. The Me Too movement, both in terms of Tarana Burke's work, but also in terms of what we see rich white women testifying to, tells us that even when you have money and power and beauty, you are still subject to the violent whims of men. And that means that there is a cause for solidarity and struggle together. But that doesn't mean that we can't hold white women accountable for their racism and that we can't have some terms to negotiate in terms of what will bring us to the table.
So talk a little bit about the gender empathy gap, or Black men caring about Black women beyond their mothers, daughters, sisters.
Patriarchy kills everybody. It doesn't just kill Black women. So much of Black women's political behavior in this country is about helping the world to see and humanize Black men and to say that we understand the ways that systems harm them. We don't see Black men sort of zooming in the same way and thinking really specifically about the way that systems harm Black women or constrict our sense of possibility, and more so than them not only thinking about it, but having a sense of commitment to helping us change it. Aspiring to be patriarchs like what white men have, that isn't freedom. That isn't going to help anybody. It's certainly not going to help Black people. Commit to each other when we're thinking through, for instance, intimate partnership, that what we can do is sort of do that Black thing that we do very well, which is that we can creatively reimagine what it looks like for us to have Black love in a world that doesn't want us to have it.
You used the word there, Black love, very important concept. I suspect it's constructive Black man, constructive Black woman, but I know there's probably more remixes nowadays, but that's something that we definitely push.
Let's talk Beyonce.
Yes.
When she came out as a feminist, there was some pretty vicious pushback from some Black feminists.
I don't want to say that legitimate critique is not valid, right? There are legitimate critiques to be had of every artist. She was drawn to feminism because it gave her a language to name some of the things she was going through in her own life. And in 2016, when we got Lemonade, it became really clear why somebody like Beyonce would want to have the sort of arsenal that you get from Black feminism, because Black feminism helps you think about what happens when you're the most powerful chick in the game, you're married to one of the most powerful dudes, and he still won't treat you right because he is intimidated by your power. Feminism is the thing that helps you think about that, because I think it's the kind of resource that helps Black girls when you're up late at night wondering why your relationship is not working and you don't want to keep on internalizing it as a problem with you. Black feminism can hold that Black girls have hurts and pains that no one else has ever listened to.
There you go.
What's up?
So if you feel the same way, make sure you jump in today when we throw out the link. That we just tackled, we've gone through what is white feminism or feminism, as it's rebranded. And then we've looked at a video that's talking about Black feminism. Now we're going to make a comparison between either feminism, Black feminism, and womanism. So I've got one or two videos here, very short. Let's click on, we got two short ones and one long one, but let's click on the two short ones. And this one is from Ehal, I believe. Ehal. Rewind.
Hi, I'm Cassandra James, author of the book How to Go From Boohoo to Woohoo in 90 Days.
Interesting book title.
As an educator and a lecturer, I'm highly skilled in helping others to develop the confidence to transform difficult relationships and situations into a springboard to reach higher heights. I'm going to discuss the difference between a womanist and a feminist. Both terms, womanist and feminist, refer to the struggle of women to obtain equality. The term womanism was coined by Alice Walker, an American author of the critically acclaimed novel The Color Purple. Womanism grew because many activists felt that the feminist movement has traditionally been a middle-class white women's movement.
You feel the same way, those who listen? If so, maybe you want to drop a comment or jump in when it comes out. Maybe so, maybe not so. We'll see.
Feminism focuses more on celebrating womanhood. The movement isn't issue-based because issues change and die, but rather on acquiring and maintaining the inclusion of women in the culture of our nation and the world. It focuses on how to make the woman powerful and viable alongside her male counterpart. Feminist campaigns have achieved women's suffrage, gender neutrality in English, reproductive rights for women, and the right to enter into contracts and own property. Because feminism seeks gender equality, bell hooks and other feminists have argued that men's liberation is a necessary part of feminism, and that men are also harmed by sexism and gender roles. My name is Cassandra James. We just discussed the difference between a womanist and a feminist.
Thank you very much. Let's go to one more short clip before we jump on. We got some quotes there. If you don't have a strategy, you're part of someone else's strategy, and that's a quote. Thank you, Gloria Miller. And then I admire Margaret Sanger, her courage, her tenacity, her vision. I'm really in awe of her. There is a lot of lessons we can learn from her. So that's so we're talking about one of the early feminists, very early feminists there. There's something very controversial in some states, but there we go. Okay, there's a striking kinship between our movement and Margaret Sanger early efforts, Martin Luther King. So Gloria Miller has shown that Martin Luther King made some kind of connection with Margaret Sanger. Excellent. Now we're going to move on to one more comparison between womanism and feminism, and then we're going to go to one of the originators. Oh no, maybe we should show intersectionality as well. Maybe I will see what happens. Who knows?
Question a lot of Black women will inevitably ask themselves while they're exploring feminism. Is womanism just feminism rebranded, or is there a little bit more to it than that? Well, in this video, I'll be explaining and exploring what is womanism. Womanism is a term coined by Alice Walker, who famously wrote the novel The Color Purple. The term first appeared in her book In Search of Our Mother's Garden, Womanist Prose, published in 1983. She created womanism to center Black women in a feminist movement.
Very good word there. Center Black women. Black betterment is centering Black people. It's strictly Black people. A very good word that we should utilize. Carry on.
That largely benefited middle-class white women. While Black women also benefited from the feminist movement, their contributions weren't acknowledged, and thus womanism was created. Because white women...
So I guess, yes, that's a good idea there. You wasn't included, did your own thing. See what happens.
Women are often seen as the standard victims of sexism. Feminism tends to be very white, and rarely considers how Black women specifically deal with being Black and female. This often means Black women participating in larger feminist movements tend to feel as though they have to choose between fighting against racism or sexism. Often because of the erasure of Black women within the feminist movement, Black women participating in feminism sometimes feel like they have to fight against the racism among feminists who don't see the need to include critiques of white supremacy in their fight against gendered oppression. These feminists are referred to as white feminists, not necessarily because they're white, but because their feminism really only seeks to serve white women, while actively overlooking Black women. And that's been consistent through the history of feminism, where Black women were often asked to stand in the back of the line while white women asked for their rights first, and considered the goals of Black women to be antagonistic to their own. Alice Walker defines a womanist as a black feminist or feminist of color, a woman who loves other women sexually or non-sexually, and sometimes individual men sexually or non-sexually. She is committed to the survival and wholeness of all people, male and female. She isn't a separatist, except periodically for her own health. She loves music, dance, the moon, the spirit, and loves love and food and roundness. She loves struggle, her people, and most of all, she loves herself. It's important to know that while womanism is about loving and appreciating black women and critiquing the classist and racist aspects of white feminism, it's also about supporting and empowering black men, who are often integral parts of a black woman's life and family. When it comes to differentiating between womanism and feminism, Alice Walker says womanism is to feminism as purple is to lavender, meaning that there are only slight differences between being a womanist and being a black feminist. Womanists largely do support the larger feminist movement and their ultimate goals, but have carved out their own space to specifically center black women. Whereas black feminists tend to do the same, but seek to work within the existing feminist movement and structure. Well, I hope this video helps you understand.
Thank you very much for your good work there. Yep. So hopefully that helped you understand. The inventor of the word, the concept, Kimberly Crenshaw of intersectionality, which is a very, very big word amongst many feminists, black feminists, and I guess womanists as well. I thought. Let me just give you her just intro. Just 4 seconds, a bit more to be honest. I'm sure many of you are know her very well, and you've heard it before, but let's hear it again.
I began to use the term intersectionality to deal with the fact that many of our social justice problems like racism and sexism are often overlapping, creating multiple levels of social injustice. Now, the experience that gave rise to intersectionality was my chance encounter with a woman named Emma de Graffenried. I actually read about Emma's story from the pages of a legal opinion written by a judge who had dismissed Emma's claim of race and gender discrimination against a local car manufacturing plant. She applied for a job and she was not hired, and she believed that she was not hired because she was a black woman. And the
very particular there, black woman.
Argument for dismissing the suit was that the employer did hire African Americans, and the
So, round eyes, it's a bit confusing. What is a bit confusing? Maybe I can help out. We can discuss it. Let me know. This is right now talking about intersectionality. So for those who don't know, it's talking about where racism and sexism overlap. And Mrs. Kimberly Crenshaw is explaining, I guess she's giving an analogy or maybe a scenario of a woman trying to get a job. And she's now in the process of explaining what she's trying to. So let's have a listen. But if you can put your confusion in the form of a question, we'll see if we can answer it. Go!
Employer hired women. The real problem, though, that the judge was not willing to acknowledge was what Emma was actually trying to say. That the African Americans that were hired, usually for industrial jobs, maintenance jobs, were all men. And the women that were hired, usually for secretarial or front office work, were all white. Only if the court was able to see how these policies came together would he be able to see the double discrimination that Emma de Graffenried was facing. But the court refused.
Well, we have, let's try to make sure we not cool language, not such things in sexuality, it's to distract us. All right, well, that's something that we should be debating to see if such a thing. I think some people might use intersectionality in a certain kind of way, but what the sister is saying is, I think ultimately what the sister is saying is black women recognize that being black comes with an oppression and being a woman comes with an oppression. And sometimes they hit double hard, which is what the sister's trying to explain now. Let's keep listening.
to allow Emma to put two causes of action together to tell her story because he believed that by allowing her to do that, she would be able to have preferential treatment. She'd have an advantage by being able to have two swings at the bat when African American men and white women only had one swing at the bat. But, of course, neither African American men or white women needed to combine a race and gender discrimination claim to tell the story of the discrimination they were experiencing. Why wasn't the real unfairness law's refusal to protect African American women simply because their experiences weren't exactly the same as white women and African American men? Rather than broadening the frame to include African American women, the court simply tossed their case completely out of court. So first of all, black women weren't allowed to work at the plant. Second of all, the court doubled down on this exclusion by making it legally inconsequential. And to boot, there was no name for this problem. And we all know that where there's no name for a problem, you can't see a problem. And when you can't see a problem, you pretty much can't solve it.
All right, good concept there.
Many years later, I'd come to recognize that
we should be using this show to identify challenges and name them so we can spread the hashtag.
The problem that Emma was facing was a framing problem.
Okay, framing.
The frame that the court was using to see gender discrimination or to see race discrimination was partial and it was distorting. For me, the challenge that I faced was trying to figure out whether there was an alternative narrative.
So, womanism, there is many different forms of womanism I'm seeing, and we're going to go through some of them. I understand that there's many same-sex people as well as misogynists as well. A lot of that goes on in a lot of these isms and schisms, but we shall listen and see what's happening.
A prism that would allow us to see Emma's dilemma, a prism that would allow us to rescue her from the cracks in the law, that would allow judges to see her story. So it occurred to me, maybe a simple analogy to an intersection might allow judges to better see Emma's dilemma. So if we think about this intersection, the roads to the intersection would be the way that the workforce was structured by race and by gender.
Right.
And then the traffic in those roads would be the hiring policies and the other practices that ran through those roads. Now, because Emma was both black and female,
are we still following?
She was positioned precisely where those roads overlapped, experiencing the simultaneous impact of the company's gender and race traffic. The law was like that ambulance that shows up and is ready to treat Emma only if it can be shown that she was harmed on the race road or on the gender road, but not where those roads intersected.
I hope you understood that. That was the analogy there by Sister Kimberly Crenshaw, the inventor of the word intersectionality, which is talking about where a person is harmed by overlapping prejudice. And this particular analogy was race and sex, and how black women are affected by both. Okay, don't drink the liberal propaganda, Kool-Aid brother. Cool, I've got Bo Diddley there. Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're definitely going to facilitate a conversation about these ideas and all the different various isms. Remember that everything we do in this show is to help facilitate the concept of Black betterment. Black people helping Black people and Black issues. And we definitely want to have a team-based initiative there. And we have IC3. The problem with many Black women haven't heard about womanism. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go to a... I've got two more videos. Let Let me give you a concept just from Africa. We won't play all of it. These are some sisters from Africa, South Africa. Let's hear what their concepts about feminism and also how it impacts on culture. So let's hear that for a bit.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mama. Perhaps let's begin really where it matters. What is your discomfort with the idea of black feminists?
Our first problem is that we discuss our issues in a foreign language. So once we talk about African feminism, I don't know what that is all about. And secondly, if I look at the history of feminism itself, well, I've studied feminist theology versus humanist theology. You'll find that these things started with the white feminists, and their issues are totally different from our own issues.
And perhaps that is where the conversation really needs to go. Black feminists do not disregard the fact that, and understanding of history of feminism, that it has its roots in Western feminist ideology. However, there is an appreciation that there is a African and a black female women reality that has not been given space, both in terms of the intellectual discourse, but also in terms of general the archiving of that history. It's not necessarily true that on the grounds that we use this, we speak about these terms in a language that is not our own, that they become invalid. I think a young poet and writer by the name of Kolega Putuma has a very interesting poem, right, that locates her own experience and understanding of feminism versus her grandmother's. And if you'll allow me, I will quote briefly that poem. Yes. She says, in explaining this dynamic nature of feminism, she says, "My grandmother's feminism doesn't sound like mine. I say patriarchy. She says, fuck, I'm a daughter. It's the same, really, different eras." So she says, and she argues, and this is an argument that is made by quite a number of feminist scholars, that even as the idea of the language of feminism, the idea of patriarchy and of intersectional politics and so on, are new ideas, they are not necessarily ideas that the concept itself or the concept itself is not necessarily new, that throughout history on the African continent, we've had women who have espoused the values, the ideas and the beliefs that feminists today are fighting for and about.
You know, my worry is to use the term fighting for, because you know the generation gap between myself and yourself. If we look at the role of, let me put it as the role of women, or of their liberation. Let us put it into context, because what you as Azania is having now is different from what my grandmother had, because we have got pre-colonial role of women, and we had colonial, which distorted the role of African women. And then we have yourselves now in the post-colonial period. So, because in the pre-colonial, when we look at this, we must look at these three eras, because if we look at them now, we are confusing issues.
Radical black feminist ideology does not disregard the experience of women in pre-colonial Africa or post-colonial Africa.
Yes.
In fact, it is rooted precisely in the recognition of those realities. And I mean, I'm very worried often about how we tend to be very romantic about how we want to understand the role of women, or, you know, and even the way the language we use, the role of women in pre-colonial Africa. There's a very intense romanticization of that period in our time that I think begs for analysis.
You may label them as being romanticized. During the pre-colonial period, there were gender roles. You had your role as a woman, you had a role as a man.
Our
Sorry, guys, I've been talking like a maniac and it's been muted. So to you guys, it's gonna sound like it's freezing. It's crazy. What I was saying, I shall go back. Let's add that to the stream.
Number one.
The sisters. What I was saying. That's why I've got Sister Kushti always alert. Had that she not said that, I was probably rambling for another 20 minutes. Yeah, what I was saying is the sister was talking about gender roles before. We're going to cut halfway. We can come back to it in a bit. We're now going to move to Tony Brown. Tony Brown. Voila.
in an era of
All right, now Tony Brown. This is just going to talk about a particular variant of womanism and why it came about. Remember, I will be throwing out the links. I said all this before, but I should say again because I was muted. I'll throw out the links soon. Hopefully, we can have black women, jump on, and we want to have a good dialogue of what you practice, what you're understanding, the values, the histories, and all that good stuff. We are focusing on the isms, the womanisms, the black African feminisms, and white feminism, the feminism. But now we have Tony Brown and one of a variant creators of womanisms. And we'll play it for a couple minutes, then we'll turn it off and throw the link out. Go!
feminism, our guest is leading a movement to reclaim femininity. Brenda Werner has identified the traditional.
It says 1994. Some of you might have thought this was the 70s because of the camera used. No, it's 1994.
Process of cultural thought among black women that is the basis for decision making and social interaction, and has named it Africana Womanism.
Okay.
Werner believes that Africana Womanism is why the feminist movement has failed to lure the rank and file black woman. She's also concerned about black college students and what she believes are cults of influence, victimization, rebellion, and idol worship, among others. Brenda Werner is out of the box and off of the plantation. I'm Tony Brown. In a moment, Africana Womanism and the cults of influence.
All right. Tony Brown.
My guest is Ms. Brenda Werner. Ms. Werner has a master's degree in education from Harvard University, heads her own communications firm in Chicago, and is chair of the National Africana Women's Studies Organization. Ms. Werner, welcome.
Is it the 70s or is it the 70s they replayed it in 1994? It's hard to tell because sometimes they use the same cameras even up through the 80s. I don't know. So someone could do the research. But here we go. Yeah, let's see. Go.
Welcome very much.
Thank you for having me.
Very nice having you. I'm glad finally we could get your schedule straight. I know you speak all over all the time. Thanks for coming. What is Africana Womanism? What is the relevance? Why and what is the distinction between Africana Womanism and what we've come to know as the feminist movement in America?
Here we go. So we're saying that Tony Brown show was early 90s, late 80s. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think they use the same cameras that they used in the 70s and stuff, and the analog camera. And it looked, obviously the fashions was whatever, long lasting. Yeah. Yeah, we can have a little competition. Whoever gets it wins freedom for black people. Excellent. There we
go. I guess I could start by saying that I became associated with people who promoted feminism approximately between 1969 and 1970. And from the very beginning, in my association with these women as the head of a black student organization at Ithaca College and Cornell University, I always recognized that their basis for operation, their perspective, and their principles were different than that of which black women had traditionally purported as I knew it. I come from Chicago, and most of the people in my family are from the South. We had a pretty clear indication of how we thought about things. And over the years, over about 22 years of participation in the women's studies movement, it became clearer and clearer to me that the thought mechanism that drives black thought is basically different from that of the popular culture movement called feminism.
something we have to analyze there. Like, generally, black people and non-black people have different ways of experiencing thinking. It's very important, and that's why Black Betterment is an in-house fixing concept. But carry on.
And the difference lies in the fact that Africana women have had an entirely different experience in the United States than women of Eastern or even Western European experience. Our experience says, the feminists started off talking about
I would like to speak. You can. I'm going to send the link in after this video. So before 11, I'll send it in so we can jump in. Definitely like to hear the views of people, especially black women, about womanism, Africanism, that's a good one. Black African feminism and feminism, and your experience with it. And also, we want to engage a very fruitful, constructive dialogue amongst the family. Carry on playing.
Equal pay for equal work, and even talking about women working. Black women have always worked, have always taken care of not only their own houses, but white women's houses too. They've always had the accessibility of influence in the community. Feminists wanted accessibility to influence men. When white civil rights, Eastern liberal establishment white civil rights workers came to the South to help in what they called the civil rights movement, they expected to see different disenfranchised black women whom they were going to lend their support to. To their surprise, they came to find out that black women ran the civil rights movement, that they were highly influential in the church and in the home. This sparked a kind of jealousy that sparked the modern day feminist movement. I was recently reading the book by Kay Mills on Fannie Lou Hamer's life. And when they approached Fannie Lou Hamer and encouraged her to join what they call the women's liberation movement at that time.
One thing we like to do here is we definitely like to hear women's opinions about women's stuff. So when I put the link out, if you're a woman and you want to talk, please jump on. We want to facilitate great, constructive, fruitful dialogues amongst the family groups. One of the solutions we're trying to push at is how better that black men and black women can communicate about issues, and we can actually learn protocols and templates that make that even more easier. But to carry on, we've got a few more minutes of this, and then we shall throw the link out. We've got 2 more minutes, I would say, 2 to a few more minutes. Go, go, go.
Fannie Lou Hamer's response was, I don't need to be liberated from my man. I don't want to be liberated from my community, my culture, or my family.
That's right.
Well, the only thing that I want is the freedom to live as well as everybody else.
I'd like to ask you one question before you continue. You said black women ran the civil rights movement. Aren't black women conspicuously absent from leadership in the black community and in the black civil rights movement in particular?
I think the position, I would say that black women were the grease for the machinery. I think it was when I look at the work that has been done, the interviews that have been held.
Now, what I'm going to do, family, I'm going to throw out the link there, and I shall let it play while people decide if they want to come and have a say about womanism, Black African feminism, and just their, role in it. We definitely want to hear Black women's opinions, and we want to have constructive dialogues. That's what we want to have, and if we don't get it, we're going to try to have a way of getting it. All right. So the link's out there now. Click and join when you want, but I shall play for a few minutes while people decide if they want to jump in or not. If not, I'll let it play, and we'll end the entire show. Go!
The women. They originally wanted black men to be in leadership because they wanted the world to see black men in leadership. But that did not mean they were taking second place to black men. As you know, you've been black all your life. Black women can let black men know how they feel.
Ask my mother.
And it's kind of interesting to see that now this whole cult of victimization that's been built up around the feminist movement is something that black women have always denied. They've always denied being a victim or the legitimate victim. We've always seen ourselves as sisters in charge of our own lives and our own destiny. And the conflict between feminism and womanism, which was the black response to early feminism. I remember in 1969, particularly when the feminists came on campus and asked that we join them, black women's response was womanism. And womanism grew out of the black cultural nationalist movement of the 1960s. We had womanhood classes in the cultural nationalist movement. Women were very clear about who they were and that their femininity was valuable. I think today, what was originally called the women's liberation movement and what was later called the women's movement and is now called the feminist movement is what exactly the planners of this popular culture event had in mind. Originally, they seduced us with the idea that we were all women and that we were going to work together for women's equality, but that we were different, that we came from different cultural backgrounds, that we came from different ethnic and racial backgrounds, and that our differences were valued. But now the only thing that's valued is the feminist perspective. You see?
No, I don't see. Help me understand that.
Well, the feminist perspective says that women are victims and women should be at war with men for power, influence, and high profile, and that they have to assert themselves in a federation against men in order to get what they want, regardless.
And we have Kevin Incels joining, brother. I don't know who that's to say. Whoever that person is, we'll add you to the view after this statement's made, and we'll chop up a nice conversation. Read the comments. When Black women's rights comes, can we smoke cross dressers and stop them from making movies? Brownie Diaries isn't best pleased with men dressing up as women. It seems. There you go.
Of the hostility that it causes. Black women have said that Black men and Black women have suffered inordinate hostilities and terrorism to some degree, and that we cannot wage war, a battle of the sexes against our men in order to gain a foothold or a toehold on the economic ladder in America. But feminists don't feel any reservation to set up, I consider it a hostile environment. But what we as African American women have to do, because things have changed over the 25-year history of the feminist movement. It started off as a women's movement. Now it's clearly a feminist movement, and they are the authors of political correctness, and they're even turning our own traditional cultural thought back on us, saying that if we do not hold their views, then we are indeed incorrect politically. One of the issues that is really important nowadays is whether or not Black women have the right to indigenous thought. You see, popular cultures tear down cultural divisions. If you are Irish or you're Italian or you are Asian, there are certain cultural mores and ways of doing things that people have indigenously. The need of the feminist movement is to wipe out these differences so that we can have a one world approach that women around the world will adopt the feminist agenda, which is abortion, the acceptance of homosexuality, the promotion of the idea of women in battle. I remember in 1974.
So just so you know, side point, the sister remembers 1974, so it can't be in the 70s because the sisters remember back in the day. And very important things there about battle, war, homosexuality, these kinds of things. I'm sure we'll be talking about that today. What we're going to do is play one more minute of it, and then we're going to let Kevin Incels jump in.
The issue was whether or not we were going to promote the idea of women being in the draft. And my objection was that if these same women who declared that these men who run the country were white and racist, they were going to give them the option of drafting women, guess who they would draft? So who
would they draft?
They would draft if they were racist and white, as the white women claimed, they would draft the Black women.
There you go, sister. Well, you go. Now we're going to add Kevin. Can you hear me, Kevin?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. Welcome to the Betterment Broadcast. Do you have an opinion? This is your first time on the broadcast. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is my first time on the broadcast, and I've been listening. You know, I came in about maybe 7 to 10 minutes ago, and I'm very interested in your topic. That's why I wanted to broach your topic.
Okay.
I'm a student of African studies. One of my majors in college was African studies, and I have a whole bunch of liberal arts degrees, but specifically African studies. And when I was in college, I used to get pretty much chased out of class a lot of times. And one time I actually literally got chased out of class for a paper that I wrote.
Right.
I've been a strong proponent of the nuclear family since I've been a child. I grew up in a nuclear family. My parents are still married to this day. My dad is almost 90 years old. Now, was my upbringing perfect? No, nobody's upbringing is perfect. Did I grow up in wealth? No, I didn't grow up in wealth, but I did grow up in a good middle class environment. But one thing I can say about the feminist movement and what it has done to the African American community, particularly because I'm an African American and well, I consider myself African American. I'm Nigerian by my parents. Is that one thing I could say about the feminist movement is that it has nothing. It has done nothing but destroyed the the black woman in terms of her thought process. It has literally created a hodgepodge of a individual who is absolutely incapable of thinking and critically thinking right. Now, hear me out for a minute. Now, I hate to sound long-winded. Now, a few nights ago, I was on a panel, and the panel was discussing how to pick the proper spouse. Now, I get up on the panel, and I suggest that, well, it starts with picking a woman who comes from a nuclear family. And everybody on the panel essentially got mad at what I said because the individuals on the panel were single parents, the men and the women, and they were trying to justify their single parent households by saying crazy shit like, "Oh, well, co-parenting is better than marriage," and not all marriages are successful. But what I did say is that what marriage does is it creates a balance, it creates order, and it establishes gender roles. And I basically went on to say that the girls that I've dated, both from single parent households and from nuclear family backgrounds, the girls I dated from single parent households were women who exhibited everything that this woman is saying: lesbianism. Generally, these women had a lot of mental illnesses, underlying mental illnesses. They had their gender roles confused. They were argumentative, etc. Everything that this woman is saying is true. And the feminist movement, I believe, is in correlation with the single parent pandemic. And the tragedy of it is that what feminism has done is that it's not about, in my opinion, destroying feminism. You can't, because feminism is too strong now, because you have a snowball effect that everything that came with it, because then you're going to have to combat lesbianism. You're going to have to combat mental illnesses. You're going to have to combat individuals who think that the marriage institution is a bad institution. So this lady, I don't know when this came out. It looked like, what, 30 years ago, maybe?
1994.
1994. Okay, so almost 30 years ago. So this lady, and I know who Neely Fuller is too. This lady was pretty much the precursor in terms of the events that are taking place today. So everything that we see today is what this lady was talking about 30 years ago. And I want to point this out of anybody who's young in here. If you're younger than 25, the world was completely different in the 90s. All of this booty shaking and women dressing half naked and all this shit, that was just really relegated.
Hold on, brother. Let me just say, we appreciate what you're saying, and we want to continue. What we're going to do is, because you've come with a great amount of information, and we're going to unpack it as you go along. There's just certain house rules. We try to use any form of derogative terms when possible.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
The reason is because usually at some point someone might have disagreements, and they might take a side word and run with that particular side word rather than the content of what you're actually saying, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Just so you know the house rule.
Yep,
that's fine. But yeah, so just as you're talking, many people are commenting and stuff, and it's good. And what just I'll let you finish a bit, but I think just to try to help summarize for everyone else, what you're saying is the concept of the feminist movement has made courtship and finding a woman most challenging. Are you going? Is this a next kind of
well, It's not even and you brought up a good point. It is that, but what feminism has done, it has completely destroyed common sense in terms of the male female dynamic, to the point where you have individuals that are saying that co-parenting or a single parent households are better or on the same par as a married family. And what I'm trying to say is that when you do not marry the person that you have a child with, that child suffers tremendously. And so they are more susceptible to feminist ideology, because all the women we see right now, not all the women, but the Cardi B's, the Meg Thee Stallions, etc., these women practice feminism at a high level. We just don't call it feminism anymore. It's been wrapped and packaged as thought culture. Thought culture is feminism. You know,
well, let me stop you there. Hold on. Interesting point. So two things. Some of the viewers will like it, if possible, when you talk about if you are dating a person older than a young person, to call them a woman. I think I don't know. If, just.
I could have swore I used the word woman, but if I did say girl, so I apologize. But I meant to say woman. Yeah.
Now, what I would say is this, because it's very important to have you on, and the reason is because ultimately you are highlighting challenges that you've observed. And naturally, there's going to be a female, a woman, I should say, sorry, a woman explanation or concept or ideas or just rebuttals on certain kind of things. And we definitely want to facilitate a conversation where we can actually find solutions on the problems you're naming. So if there's any women in the group who wish to join, by all means, jump in. What I would say to you is you're highlighting some of these challenges that you've seen, and you're connecting them to feminism and stuff. Let's just understand that the concept of feminism, is equality for women. Whatever was practiced, that's what we can say. But I think one thing we have to do, sometimes we get in trigger words where it sounds like we're tearing down certain kind of things, and maybe we're not. So, do you agree with the concept of women having equality?
The concept of equality in terms of what I'm assuming you are trying to ask, no. No, there is no such thing as equality in any society, really. Okay. Let's be completely honest. It's funny that women want equality when it comes to women pick and choose what they want equality for. So, for example, they want equality when it comes to playing in the NBA. You know, in terms of like a salary, you hear a lot of WNBA players saying we should get paid the same amount of money, yada yada yada. Right. But when it comes to building skyscrapers, when it comes to working on roads, when it comes to anything hard, you don't see women rushing for those jobs and those salaries. When women want equality, but when is the last time you heard groups of women saying, I want to defend my country to the point where I die for it? You don't have a lot of women in the military, and you don't have a lot of women certainly on the front line. So women pick and choose when they want equality. And so to me, it's not about equality. It's about leveraging a situation for your own benefit. And that's what makes it selfish. The fact that, I'm going to use the WNBA example again. Now, it sounds like you're from the UK, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So the WNBA is the women's equivalent to the NBA. It's a professional.
I'm familiar with the sports in America. Yeah. You have a women's basketball league and a men's.
Yeah. Now
the men get paid considerable much more than the women. Yeah.
They get paid a lot more, but it's because of the fans. The fans are willing to pay $100, $200 for nosebleed seats, and nobody's really willing to pay.
But I guess with the thing with your analogy is the only issue is with, like, I think with MMA there was a woman who recently was a very high paid MMA fighter. So we understand that people who put bums on seats can get paid more. I mean, this has always happened in sporting events.
Right,
and especially within contact sports and combat. Right. Sports. So, and this concept, this could be a brand issue. Obviously, sexism and this kind of isms always play some kind of with some.
Exactly.
But generally, we understand that in those circumstances, people can actually barter and how much people pull in, they can charge more. But I mean, what would you say your what is your disagreement? So you say you're from a Nigerian background in the sense of your parents were from Nigeria and they immigrated to the Americas, and then you're a Nigerian American. Is that correct?
I consider myself African American. I don't consider myself Nigerian American.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay.
But I see what you're saying, though. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as now people are having different definitions because of
Yeah,
certain things, but the idea is you can trace your lineage to Nigeria directly, right?
correct.
While with some of the African Americans, the reason why the term African American came right is because, well, what Pan African Unity was one of them, but also it was quite hard to define where the lineage came from at that particular time. So, but they understood it was from the continent of Africa.
Yeah.
Right. So okay. So what is there anything that you would like to tell us in the sense of like you jumped on because there's something you obviously
It
not very
is.
clear on the
It
T-shirt, right?
is. It is. If there are any young men in the chat, what I strongly recommend is that for you to avoid feminism, for you to avoid women who identify as feminists, etc., date your best bet is to date women from nuclear background, meaning that a woman who comes from a a background where her mother and father are married, um, hopefully still are married if the mother's not a widow, because you can be rest assured that that woman has some sort of character feminine characteristics, because she has seen her mother be feminine, she has seen her mother be domestic to a degree, she has seen her mother cook, clean, cater, help out in the household,
Mm.
help the father,
Let me
whereas
jump in, brother. But I hear what you're saying, and the reason I'm jumping is because I always try to like connect the dots, and because the concept of this show is to find better men amongst black people. Now, before you jumped on, you said that you were having difficulty communicating with, I guess, either men and women in a different podcast or different stream where you brought
yeah
up similar concepts. That's correct.
yes.
Okay, so the reason I say is because we've got some women who might want to jump in to communicate with you, but I want to try to set a tone where there can be a back and forth if the women do decide to jump in.
Absolutely.
And one thing I would say is we try to be solution based.
Well, that is the solution.
Yeah.
The solution is to end feminism. Black people especially need to create nuclear families.
Right.
Black people need to embrace a collective response and constructivism. Black
Right.
people need to essentially, and I'm not really necessarily spiritual or anything, but Black people really need to embrace a level of conservative Christian beliefs, even if you're not a Christian or not. Conservatism is, I believe, the key for Black people. Yes.
Right. So let me just we've got Tash jumping in as well as Brother Kel has been in, and I know he wanted to actually talk about womanism at a certain point. Obviously, Brother Kevin has jumped in with these past interactions, and he might have maybe started a talk that we might have to have. And obviously, you're pushing forward that when you're dating, you believe that nuclear families is a good
Yes.
way to find women.
Yes.
One thing I would say, what would you say about the women out there? And obviously, Tashkin and Kelko jumping after saying, what do you think about women out there who see a value in coming together with other women on women issues to find solutions for women issues?
Well, let's be completely honest, Rap Raven. Women don't have any issues. Let's be completely honest. Women generally don't die in the workplace at the same rate that men do. Women are not the leading the leading homicide deaths like men are. Men die in accidents on the job. Men are killed more than women. Men generally give up their lives for their countries.
Well,
you asked me a question. Well, you asked me a question, Rap Raven.
Let me just stop you there. Yeah, because what
Can
it
I
is,
start some quick questions?
you can. Let me just say this, then Tash will jump in. I would say this, and obviously Tash is more qualified than me. There are certain topics that might be woman Pacific, and that's what they might want to come together. But either way, let Tash ask a question, and hopefully we can have a dialogue. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was a bit of a major contradiction to what you were saying earlier on. You were talking about the fact that men should be picking particular women, but you forgot about those men that come from single parent homes. So I'd ask you, are women supposed to disregard them, or do we pick that group? Which
may I answer your question?
And sorry, let me just finish. And the second part of it was you mentioned that obviously I'm not particularly fond of the feminist movement myself, right? So, but the fact that you're saying, obviously, I agree with you to a certain extent that it is an attack on the black family structure, right? But to suggest that you should be disregarding a whole group, to me, that goes against what this whole program is supposed to be about.
Yes.
Right, because we are supposed to be coming together and putting solutions together. So, yeah, if you could answer that first question, that'd be great.
So to answer your first question, I said this on the panel the other day because it's funny that you said it, because a young lady asked me the same question, and I gave her the same answer. If a man comes from a broken home or a single parent household, and a woman who comes from a nuclear family is interested, that woman's father, she should vet that man. Basically, he should say, honey, I would prefer that you would not date him. He comes from a broken home. He comes from a single parent household. And as a responsible father who's still married to the mother, and that's his daughter, he should give her facts. These are the facts behind individuals who come from a single parent household. Generally speaking, these people tend to have more mental issues. These people tend to be more violent. These people tend to be this, that, and the other, which are stats, and I could pull them up.
Yeah, pull up the stats, please.
So, and I will, and actually, I'll put them in the private chat for Rap Braven. Now, to answer your second question, so your second question was, what was your second question again?
I didn't get to my second question, but okay. I felt that you contradicted yourself, right, in regards to women not having any issues. And it just felt like a bit of a bashing session, and I feel like that's not really constructive or productive for the issue that we have as a black group, right? So, yeah, I was just wondering if you could steer clear from that, because I may agree with you in regards to feminism.
Tosh, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, okay, go on.
You're from the UK, right? So I've never been to the UK.
Okay.
Can you do me a huge favor? Can you name me one men's a shelter that is solely for men, that a man can go to if he's beaten, battered, if he ends up homeless? Is there any services in the UK that I'm not aware, because I'm not aware of that in the United States?
That's not really my forte, but I can have a look. I'm pretty sure that there is going to be some form of shelter for men only.
Right. I'm just
but
curious.
That's not the only issue that we have, though. We have issues, in education, in health. There's nuances to this. It's not just based on violence, criminality, those kind of issues
now, Tosh,
that you're focused on.
Now, I don't know how it is in the UK, and I listen. I don't know how it is in the UK, but statistically in the United States, 60% of college students are females.
Right.
Okay. So I don't think so. And so if there's an educational issue in the UK, I'm not aware of it. But I know in the United States, women have no problem obtaining more degrees and enrolling in college at a higher rate than men.
And job opportunities?
In terms of job opportunities, women are more likely to get hired at certain places where men are not.
I still have the equal pay situation is okay for women. Anyway,
here goes the thing. I don't know. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm cutting you.
No, we could go back and forth on this who's doing worse. It's supposed to be a group effort, really, to be honest with you. And for me, to break those generational curses that you were kind of discussing earlier on, right? To say that you're not going to even extend your hand out to the single parent home is the reason why we're in this situation in the first place, right? Because the stats and the numbers of single parents home is big, it is large, and we need to support and break that cycle and not just demonize, right? And the feminist movement is definitely an attack. But I just wanted to say, Raven, the womanism, I've never heard of it before. I think it was from the lady that wrote The Colour Purple. I'd need to listen to more of it to really understand it. But it sounds interesting. So it's kind of like replacing the feminist movement. Is that what?
Yeah, and there's different sects. So basically, and the reason Brother Kel should jump. We have to say welcome to Brother IC3 as well. But Brother Kel is probably waiting to speak, and I think maybe Brother Kel can explain womanism from his standpoint, but also any women in the group who wish to jump on and explain it further in their detail, please feel free to jump on the link. I think we still have one more space, I believe so. I can't remember the maximum. I think it might be 6, 1, 2, 3.
I think it's 10, if I'm not mistaken.
Is it 10 on streaming?
I think it's 10. Yep. If you,
It might. Well, I haven't seen the update, so maybe. But brother Kel, if you're there, would you like to maybe jump in just to add your voice to what's going on?
I put stats in the private chat for anybody who wants to look at the stats, by the way, of single parent households.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Brother Kel, are you still there? Brother Kel's gone, not to worry. All right, so with womanism, there's different sects, but I think one of the ideas that we're seeing here is black women realizing that European and white women have different agendas, so there's a value in black women being fulfilled. This is what we're seeing. Brother IC3, would you like to have a comment? I see your patient.
No, not at the moment. Not at the moment.
Okay,
I'll say
cool.
something in a minute. Yeah.
Just mute you for a bit. Just there you go. Brother Kel's back. Brother Kel, is your microphone working better now?
Yeah, how you doing, Brother Raven?
Very good. Thank you, Brother Kel. I don't know how much you've heard, but would you like to join in at all?
No, I was listening. I was listening to the sister and the brother dialoguing. Yeah, from what I've known growing up, it's something what my mother and the rest of the family, the Pan-Africanist family, is that there was a prolific Pan-Africanist by the name of Anna J. Cooper, and she was promoting the African womanism. You know, basically, it's all to do about the African woman without including non-African women. And it was very prolific. Even Charlotte Bass, who was also a co-president of the Universal Negro Improvement Association with the Honorable Marcus Garvey, she also promoted that as well. And it was the way to get away from like Margaret Sanger and the rest of the issues what the European woman had with the European man, and trying to use the African woman's mind, which is very powerful, to help her with her movement. So these prolific Pan-Africanists like Anna J. Cooper, and there's more than that, but the ones that I grew up on, and Charlotte Bass, they was to steer the African woman away from the ideologies and misrepresentation of womanism.
Interesting. And the reason why this is important is because what we have now, we have a new brother in Kevin, who's African American of Nigerian lineage, and he's come on, and he's obviously has much to say about women who identify as feminists. And one thing we try to do is facilitate a situation where we can have constructive conversation between black women and black men, and hopefully we can use this platform to do that. But obviously, he's a man of his own experience from the past. So what I would say is, if we can actually try to have a conversation, and just so you know, the format of this show, brother, because you might have came in late. This is to Kevin. This is a Black Betterment format. So the idea is for black people who recognize there's been a historical way that hasn't worked. So many of the things you've identified, the things that hasn't worked, and is how best to find solutions. But one of them is to have a meaningful and constructive dialogues between men and women. And that's a very important. So we found it. But we seem to have a question from Brother IC3. Do you have something to say about IC3? You're muted, by the way, Brother IC3, just so you know.
I just wanted if I could get some feedback on the panel's understanding of the difference between womanism, feminism, and femaleism. Because I assume that femaleism is different from womanism, does that exist? But could you just clarify the difference between womanism and feminism? Because I don't believe that there are such things as black men and black women, because man and woman, woman and man means manager. You know, I follow Neely Fuller's model. So to be a man or woman, you have to be in position of power. It's management class. And so could I have everybody's view on this womanism, what is that? And could they just clarify the words, please? I can't get my head around this.
Right, I'm just going to post something. So basically, so the way we're going to show you, because there's ideas and concepts, and there's movements that push those concepts. So feminism as a concept was the concept of making all sexes equal in concepts of pay and rights and voting and this kind of stuff, right? And there's many other things. What happened is they collectively came together, the feminists. They actively did actions, and many of, if not all, the black women at the time felt that they were separated, even though they were there trying to help out and get rights for women. They felt that they weren't included in this particular movement, so they formed what was then known as womanism. And also there was also arguments about, and this is the key point we have to say here, and this might correlate with what other people were saying. A lot of black women at that time never felt that their problem was actually the black man. The white woman at that time felt that her problem was the white man, because the white man didn't have was setting rules. But unfortunately,
So one second, are you saying it was the black females that started womanism?
Yes, this is correct. This is correct.
Oh, right. Okay, interesting.
Black women, it depends on, obviously people have different tones and what they use, but I would use the tone of black women. And what it is the black women started womanism, and this was because it also included concepts of motherhood and being a wife and but still having some kinds of power. But then there is variance. So the one I think we played was Africana womanism. And there's one known as womanism, which was started by the lady the woman Alice Walker, who coined the term. She also wrote The Color Purple. So there are different womanisms, but generally it is meant to be black women doing a black woman feminist concept. However, that woman manifests or whatever, right? And this is what personally the show has to support, because the show is about black people helping black people on black issues. So if it makes more sense from the show standpoint for black women to focus on black issues amongst black women. But that's me talking too much. Does anyone else like to jump in and add to that as what I've said? No? Everyone's on mute, by the way.
Yeah. Well, since nobody's going to say anything, I guess I could say something. Yeah. Again, my views are extreme, but I believe that the way to fix the current condition of the black community is to be very vigilant in establishing the nuclear family. The idea of equal rights for women, that's just absurd. Women by nature do not want to be equal to men, and they know that naturally. No woman in their right mind really wants to fight in a war. No woman in their right mind wants to dig ditches and build skyscrapers. No woman really wants to do that. Matter of fact,
Kevin.
I was just trying to finish my point. I mean,
Can I ask you a question, Kevin?
I'm just.
The thing is, Kevin, what we will understand is because of the nature, because we only have a 2-hour show. So because you're new to the show, we're going to try to get you up to the culture of how we communicate. So we usually have like a hit and quit kind of dialogue, where, because most of the things you're saying it concludes with the same kind of output, which is good. But so we would like to put our input on that, and then we can have it back and forth. So I think what you've made very clear is men and women are not equal in the standpoint you're saying. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Now, brother, IC3, you have to jump in now. Go ahead, bro. Ask your question.
Yeah. I have a question for Kevin.
Sure.
Do you believe that white supremacy exists and is operational?
Not only do I believe that white supremacy exists, I believe that white supremacy is the reason why the planet is in the current condition that it is, in terms of it is the greatest time in the history of mankind because of white supremacy. I wholeheartedly believe in white supremacy, and the reason why we're so advanced is because of white supremacy.
Right. Okay. So, interesting one time back to. Okay. Go ahead, brother. Go.
Brother Raven, there's a sister in the comment. She was saying that womanism is not going to work out because Eddie Murphy and Tyler Perry dress up as females, right? This is what I was trying to explain to do is that when you put the Pan-Africanism and the Garveyism on anything that you do, what happens is you eradicate things that goes against the best interests of African people. So, for example, womanism, if you put the African before it, meaning Pan-Africanism and Garveyism, the womanism movement was very successful. In fact, if we don't focus on the 1900, African womanism has been successful ever since in the Benin, East Africa, South, Central. They've always practiced that. So for to say it's not going to work, it only won't work if we're not using Pan-Africanism. Tyler Perry, all due respect to him, we appreciate what he's built. Tyler Perry's not a Pan-Africanist Garveyite, neither is Eddie Murphy. So we cannot expect these type of brothers to represent the African family.
Right. Yeah, I understand this. Just so you know, brother Kevin also is new to the show, and he has views from his own history and his own understandings, and we would like to unpack those views definitely. And we might find that we might not actually agree on many things, or we might agree. Who knows, right? But obviously, brother is saying that the world has been shaped by white supremacy, and he's best pleased with this concept. Also, the brother said that men and women shouldn't be equal from his understanding. Well, everyone has their own concepts and how they have deliver it. But he's also said that on the panel he's come from before this panel, many people do not necessarily want to engage him. And I noticed that you have a red pill and blue pill icon. So, and your name is Kevin Incels. Is that like a play on words, brother? Just so we can understand.
It's a play on words. Yeah, you're definitely correct. It's a play on words. The whole idea of an incel is an individual who is pretty much a recluse of society,
Yes.
but also Kevin Incels is the individual who is banging your wife at work while you're thinking that it's really for like a blue pill person.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Damn, sorry.
Be careful with the words. But what I would say is this: would you identify yourself as an incel, or is it just a comedy kind of?
I was trying to get to what the Kevin Incels part was. So basically, the individual who believes that just because he's doing the right thing, that his wife isn't at work with Kevin Incels. You get what I'm saying? Okay, there we go, Coco. There we go. I'm glad that translated.
Would you say you've had much of a challenge talking to women about some of your ideas?
Well, here goes the thing, man. When I was younger, I'm 37 now. When I was younger, just like most men, slept around with any and everybody. But now that I've gotten older, a woman has to be a woman has to be at a certain standard. There's a certain standard that I apply for every woman. So I just don't generally just talk to anybody now. You just have to meet a certain standard for me at this point as an older man.
As I would assume, one of the things we try to push is, so this is a Black Betterment show. So we promote constructive Black man for constructive Black woman.
Yeah.
So that's what we push, and that's what we're trying to build the world to be able to facilitate this concept and this idea. I don't know what your history is with this concept, but one thing is hopefully it's a learning process. And if you come on this show, we would like to be able to facilitate a conversation where you can talk to Black women and you have a reasonable back and forth. But what I'm detecting is if you have a certain delivery as you've had, like saying, Black women don't want equal rights and this kind of stuff, by the way you deliver it, you might actually limit that kind of conversation.
Yeah, well, again, I'm all about what I believe is the truth, and I don't like lying, and I don't like beating around the bush. I just like being upfront, and I wasn't necessarily trying to bash anybody. I was just telling you how I felt from my perspective on feminism or the feminist movement, etc. So, I really want to engage in the discourse, and I'm glad you're telling me how your channel is functioning. I will adhere to that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, and that's the thing, and that's one thing is we never want to be echo chamber in the sense of we can talk to people who correlate our ideas back and forth, and it works very well. But really, we want to engage with people who might stumble upon certain ideas, and we can talk. And also learning how the world views certain of ideas. Brother IC3, you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah. What does the panel think of this approach? Because obviously, when talking about relationship issues between male and female and things like that, when talking about female issues, relationship issues always come up. It's very difficult to talk about womanism and feminism without then moving into the subject of how the family, what system you should have for the family, and how relationships should be formed. And so, what does the panel think of this? I think that the only way to have a functional relationship in this system of white supremacy is that you have to be focused on focused on working to neutralize white supremacy, and then you will then attract the right kind of attract the right kind of person who is tricky, because it's like trying to build a relationship in prison. Like if you follow Neely Fuller's situation example, like if you're trying to get a good relationship in prison, there's always a third person. If there was such a prison where you have male and females were allowed to meet within the same prison, the management of the prison would impact the relationship.
But I just think, let me just drop something, because one thing we have to understand about this show is very organic, and it is heavily dictated by the energy and the people, the guests that jump in. But what I always have to remember is these shows have a theme, and the theme of this show is the difference between womanism, Black African feminism, and feminism. However, the content and the topic that's coming now looks like these will make very good future shows. But one thing I don't want to do, and this is something we're trying to fix, many Black women feel excluded from male conversations. And there's a historical reason for that, and there's a delivery reason for that. And I picked this up through my years of being orator and speaking. So one thing I let people know is we can always set a side show for these particular topic, have a part 2 and stuff, and we can always invite women on to talk. But some women might not feel best comfortable because of how we might approach a topic or how people communicate. So what I'm saying is, if the men on the panel feel that sometimes they get the same results all the time when they try to push across their concepts and ideas, then we can maybe try and listen to the women in our community and find how best to deliver ideas, so we can have a constructive back and forth. And this is a learning process. Once again, the organic nature of the show, I mean, anyone can jump at any time and say anything. We'll always, and the spirit of conversation will go anywhere. But I let the people viewing today know that this show is about analyzing the difference between womanism, Black African feminism, and feminism. And obviously, some brothers have talked about how it affects them. But really, the Black female's voice is the most important. And right now we have Tash on the
priority.
Yeah. So your views are more paramount than ours in this particular context. So whatever you have to say, we're willing to listen, if that makes sense.
What's your view, Tash?
Yeah, I have to look into womanism a little bit more, but feminism isn't really something that I fully support, unfortunately.
Now let me just, because obviously I'm just gonna use what was said in the video to help out a bit more. And what I'm saying is, a lot of the women say that feminism, the concept of women having equal rights in many areas, is what they're pushing, and not necessarily the political collection of women doing particular things. As a concept, do you support the concept of women being equal as in the sexes, so-called sexes, or whatever people say nowadays? I don't know. Do you support it as a concept or not really?
The concept itself is a bit lost on me, if I'm honest with you. Right, okay. And that might be due to religion and what have you, right?
Right.
But I feel it fulfilled, a part of history where there was a change that was needed, right? But I think it was this might be controversial. It did come, for me, from the white middle class group, right? For their own purposes, right? And I do think it's taken the Black man out of the home.
Right.
I do think it's been an attack on the structure of the black family home. But I don't agree with Kevin's kind of personal. I felt a bit of an attack on our group, right? So yeah, that's kind of where I stand. I would want to read into womanism a little bit more. I know it kind of takes on a different, because I'm not too sure on womanism either, if I'm honest with you. But I'd have to
and
look
that's
into
good.
it more.
And one thing you said, Atasha, that's very important is a new member has come on and you've personally felt attacked. Now, some people say, we don't care if a person feels the same way, but on this show, we try to create a space where we do care, because one of the goals is to create a space where black men and black women can talk constructively, and sometimes we have to learn from each other. Now, we have a new person called Botep. Hopefully the brother is there to do constructive work.
Botep!
Welcome.
No hotep.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add to the conversation about feminism. Like I'm not into it. I don't support it. I pretty much agree with everybody before about how it affected the black community. And womanism, I've never heard of that. But I was wondering if you was gonna go back to the topic of intersectionality, because I feel like that's a topic that's even though she articulated it in a way in her speech, I feel like the actual implementation of it isn't that, and it's used as a way to kind of like allow other groups to come in and sow division, even amongst black men and black women.
Right.
By creating this narrative as if our issues are the same when it isn't. Or there's some intersection.
Right. So there's certain extension, and obviously a black woman. If you want to jump in and say anything, just overshadow. You have the mic, but I'll speak for a bit. What I would say is sometimes we get some things confused. Hold on, let me just say so you jump in this. Some things we get confused, and sometimes I think what the sister said in the particular video was very particular, and in that particular video, the sister was talking about the effects of being a black woman and how sexism and racism affect them at the same time at the intersect of that kind of connection, right? Now, obviously, as time goes by, like with many, and this is just me now, I'm extending my opinion, like with many, and this is the sole purpose of Black Betterment, to be honest, right? There is a kindness in black people that I haven't seen in other people, and there's probably a history of why this is. And within this kindness, there is always extending the olive branch to include every single non-black person into whatever you're doing. Now, somewhere along the line, the concept of intersectionality might have done that, where every other group was in it apart from a rich white man and maybe a black man. Who knows? I don't know, right? And so, because of this, the concept of black betterment, as in the allowing the black person to know it is okay for black people to come together to work on black issues, is fine. So, from that concept, me personally, intersectionality makes sense in identifying that a black woman will also face sexism and racism, and for her to come together with other black women to find solutions, I have to agree. The challenge I might face is where you start including everyone else before you've established your own pillar.
Let me ask you this though.
Go ahead, brother. Before I see Free Johnson, go ahead. One more time. Go ahead.
Isn't that common sense though? Like, do they need studies and all this other stuff to like that seems common sense.
Right.
Like a black woman, a black woman will have issues that's specific to her as a woman.
Well, you remember we're using
right.
So IC3 will jump in when I say this. Sorry, IC3. The thing is, brother,
I think it's good.
God damn,
I think it's brilliant. The point that Botep raised. Let's look at that word intersectionality, or whatever it is. From the little bit I saw there, it appears that the framing and the mindset is where the problem is. In that, it appears to me that those people were trying to use intersectionality to explain to the powers that be that they're suffering a problem. So it's almost like saying, what black women are suffering. We've just realized black women are suffering from in so many all these different areas, and all these different areas intersect. Well, that's exactly what Neely Fuller was saying. White supremacy covers all areas of activity at the same time. So as people start to realize that the problem's coming in all these different areas, they keep trying to explain to the authorities as if the white supremacists don't know. And they're thinking that they're hoping that by producing another report or explaining or doing another conference, we'll be able to make white people understand. And then once white people understand, they'll say, oh, I'm so sorry.
Let me ask this question. So as it relates to intersectionality, like, I guess the IC3 point to make sense of what he's saying, like, who are they talking to? Like, who are they trying to convey that message to?
Exactly.
Is that like, all right, let me just finish, bro. Is that a message that's specific to white women? That go ahead.
So terms can be thrown out and used, but regardless of who they're talking to, what I would say is within this platform, we promote in-house solutions. So that term can be used in an in-house solution, but whenever it becomes universally spread amongst like a collective of different groups, then it's got nothing to do with what we're doing here.
I don't think you understand what I'm asking you.
Yeah, brother, Boltep, right? And I was listening to the Outer IC3, right? The thing is that you will never find in the late 20s, early 20s, that the African Garveyites were begging, the Europeans for things. They never did it. That's why, if you notice, I gave these examples of Anna J. Cooper, Charlotte Bass, and the rest, is that they weren't begging. They were doing. Do you understand what I mean? That's
Very
what I'm
good.
trying to say, is that
when
I keep mentioning, right, the principles of Garveyism, right, we have to understand that the Garveyism reinvented Pan-Africanism. I truly believe that the African woman needs to practice African womanism based upon what Anna J. Cooper did and Charlotte Bass, because that is going to help her to get her rights. If she doesn't do that, she's going to be begging for the intersection, which doesn't really make any sense, really, because they know.
Right. Yes. Very good. Very good. Very good.
Tasha's gone, brothers. Just I don't know if she disconnect, but she's just jump on. Okay, cool. There's space for people to jump if they wish. Like I said, we have space for women to talk. Brother ICV, did you want to say something? Your hands are up.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. If we combine what Botek was saying with Brother K, Botek was saying with what Brother K was saying. If you combine the two, then we can see what I perceive that the whole idea of this intersectionality and trying to get to an understanding of intersectionality is because they fundamentally want to be able to explain their problem to the authorities that be in order so that they can get more funding or more hopefully get better understanding. The authorities, the white supremacist authorities, will better understand their plight and therefore get more funding or support. They can draw down support from the system of white supremacy, whilst in contrast to the Garveyites, they realized, look, it's white supremacy. There's nothing to talk about. There's no new words. Let's just sort ourselves out. We're not going to get help from them. Let's focus on ourselves.
I think, Brother Botep, have you joined twice? Can you hear me, Brother Botep? Is your phone broken? So I need to add your second one.
You can hear me?
I can, but you've got two guys here. So because of the space, should I get rid of this?
Drop.
Hello? You're probably using a phone and a PC at the same time. Hello? All right, don't worry about it. We'll move for now. There's still space for people to jump on. What I was going to say is, well, look, here's how there's something I want to be aware. One, it's mainly men on the panel and women are welcome to jump on. Two, the concept of regardless of how women or men are using certain kind of things and who they're asked for, that's one thing. But it more comes down to how we use it. If there is a particular, if women do feel that they are hit double with sexism, black women I should say, sexism and racism, then as men we should listen, and as men we cannot explain. We don't know how that feels. We don't know how it feels to be a black woman or a woman being attacked or whatever might be the issue might be. So having a word to identify that's fine. Now, yes, from a black Betterment standpoint, it's not a part of the culture to ask anyone outside of the black community for anything, really. It was not a topic we'll cover.
Say that again. Say that again.
From a concept of black Betterment, yeah.
Oh, right. From black Betterment, okay.
Yeah, from a Betterment standpoint, the culture of black Betterment, the lifestyle is how to black people work together to find solutions. Yeah.
Right.
So if the solution is we go to a non-black person and ask them, please give us a solution. This does not qualify for black Betterment. You can do it, but it doesn't qualify. Just like
right. Okay. Good.
Vegan. It might be a good meat, but it's not vegan. Yeah. So we have to have concepts, and intersectionality is for me the value is it's a word where you can talk about sexism and racism hitting a particular at the same time. There's a value there, and a black woman invented it, so credit to her for being inventive of such a thing. So I don't think it should be something as men we should really keep going on, because I think sometimes as men we confuse women in why we're saying things, and sometimes it might make them feel like they don't want to jump on and talk about certain things. But go ahead, brother. Bro.
Can talk about sexism and racism at the same time.
Is that your microphone's on, brother? And there's a delay, so I don't know what kind of I might have to meet you, brother. Yeah, let me sort that out. Excellent. Yeah. So
did you say intersectionality was created by a black woman?
A black woman. Yes.
Oh, right. Okay. So the term intersectionality came up, and womanism and intersectionality, those two terms came up by a black woman. Is that correct?
That's why they will be what we push forward on this show.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay.
Black people helping black people with black issues. So white feminism is really our issue, really. And anything that black people invent, we always have to highlight. So from that point, we as a community can use such words to highlight the challenge that black women go through, particularly because, as all black men, our job is, well, some people might disagree, but protecting and providing is a big part of what sustains a community, and I include that in listening. So if the black women have an experience, the brother red pill, I don't know, I say brother, the brother with the red and blue pill image, Kevin, I think it was, he's left now, but he had an energy of someone who came from a very battle kind of centric place, and we definitely want to make sure that we minimize that when we talk to women. We'd like to welcome brother She Range. Your camera might be on, She Range, so you might want to turn it off, or maybe not. But I'm going to let you into the group. If sister She Range, yep, excellent. Oh, the device is not connected. All right, there might be a technical issue with that. So when the sister sorts out, we'll let her in. But we definitely want to let me see what the family is saying. It's not surprising because it affects them, and clearly no one else is bothering to address it. That's not surprising because it affects them, and clearly. Sister Kushi, let's explain what that means, just because I think I know what it means, but I might not know. No. So just let me know. No. But one thing I try to do is step back and make sure that we're not losing people in translation. So we definitely want to make sure that this is a show that talks about womanism and now intersectionality, because obviously womanism, to many women haven't heard of it. My brother Kel is quite an expert in the history of it to the degree. So I know he will obviously have his 10-pence piece to throw it. But sister, she raises his head. Welcome. Hopefully your microphone is working, sister.
Welcome.
Hey,
welcome.
Yeah. Hi, interesting discussion. I just wanted to comment on some of the aspects that the brother in the States made in regards to the nuclear family.
Yes.
The nuclear family is actually a conservative construct, and you specialize in history, so you must know that Britain are the grandfathers of the US. So these conservative constructs were adopted whilst the Europeans or the British were in the States, and it has continued to live on. Now, the nuclear family consists of what they call 2.4 children. So it's a mother, a married couple who have 2 children. So that means that normally there are 4 people within the household. That is the construct of the nuclear family. Now, if we look at the African concept of village concept, that nuclear family model doesn't necessarily benefit us.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right. And also, a lot of your ideas, because I was basically trying to, I kind of figured out that you weren't fully accustomed to British customs and values, etc., based on a lot of the things that you were saying in regards to the statistics about homicide, about men dying on the at work, and a lot of other indicators that you stated. And this is where a lot of what you're saying is quite alien, because although in the diaspora we experience a lot of the same thing, it is very different in many different parts of the world in regards to the treatment of the African. The racism context, for example, is extremely overt in the States, whereas in Britain it's very much undercover. So a lot of the experiences that you are talking about, even in regards to Black women in the States, doesn't really resonate with a lot of the issues that we faced, or that we consider that we have issues with, as much in regards to even the Black man and the relationship. For me, I'll speak for myself, it's like a jigsaw that's missing pieces. And I think that, in future, if you are speaking about the American experience, that you must definitely state that, so that we can kind of draw the comparisons, and we can kind of have more of a balanced discussion around it, and have more of an understanding of where you're coming from, because it seems very much outside of what we're trying to achieve during this Black Betterment this Black Betterment show that Brother Raven spends a lot of time and effort designing. So I just wanted to state that first and foremostly about the nuclear family. And then also in regards to feminism, if we look at the timeline, I think what a lot of people in regards to the Black Power movement, etc., especially if we go to the 60s in America, for example, the Black woman was behind the Black man, and as it was stated in one of the videos, the Black women wanted to show the world that the Black man could lead. And I find a lot of joy listening to Malcolm X and his speeches. Marcus, if we even go further backwards, Marcus Garvey and his speeches, Kwame Ture and his speeches, I find a lot of joy in that. And then also we go on to a lot of Black women who were like your Angela Davies, etc., who were fighting to actually get their points across on the pulpit, but in some ways or other their voices kind of got absorbed into the feminist movement. But the majority of a lot of Black women, I would say, were more fighting for financial rights, because they were experiencing a lot of financial abuse with their partners, physical abuse, and all of these things. And when you think about human rights in general, there are abuses against man, or should I say women, that we should not be tolerating. And I think that we tend to get human rights in regards to the Black family mixed up with feminism, where there were certain things that Black women just did not want to accept. And in order for Black women to move forward with the times, they couldn't remain in the house, where there were also a lot of black men who were experiencing depression, who were on drugs. You know, there are so many societal issues that was messing up the black family that has led to what the 90s explosion of a rebirth of black exploitation in a different way through music, etc., etc. That is what has influenced a lot of where we are today. I'll put that to the panel anyway.
Ashay. Brother Raven.
Go, yes, Brother Kel.
Right. If we analyze these two individuals, one of them is Gloria Steinem, right? In 1958, she came back from India, and the CIA funded her to have a white agenda. Notice, a white agenda, to separate and to propaganda a branch of white supremacy based upon capitalism and oppressing women's rights, i.e. the white woman's rights. Now, if we flip over on Charlotte A. Bass, Pan-Africanism, who led the Universal Negro Improvement Association, backed up by Garveyism. The point is, brother, is that if you have an agenda for Garveyism, the campaign will be successful. If you have an agenda for white supremacy, the campaign will be successful. The African woman needs to get back to Garveyism, African womanism. That's the only way she's going to get her rights.
Thank you, family. Let me just add, when Sister Range eloquently put some good points there. The brother who she was talking to disconnected a couple minutes back before the speech was made. But one thing we have to recognize is many people will stumble upon some of our topics and hashtags and then click on and might not know the history of the channel. And there are many people who have different ideas, and I don't like to assume. I tried to ask some questions that really unpack, but the brother had pictures of red pills and blue pills, and he said he was coming from a lot of hostile kind of communication and stuff. And what you do find is there are many men who they not saying this particular brother, but they come from like an incel community. I think involuntary celibacy or something like that. I can't remember. But what it is just basically men who feel that they want to be intimate with women, but women are not. It's hard for them to do this kind of thing. And at some point, there's like a grudge match or a versus match. And then sometimes men who might be of that kind of background might talk at women rather than talk to women. And so we want to make sure that if brothers are coming from this particular lifestyle, we want to say that this is not the combative kind of way to talk. Although we want people to be truthful with their opinion, we want to try to be fruitful, make sure that we conduct ourselves in a way where communication can manifest, which is good. Well, as I say, we actually are out of we've hit the 12 o'clock mark. One thing we would like to do as well is definitely make it more conducive and easy for them to jump on. And if anyone wants to have any particular topic, by all means, we've said womanism and intersectionality. These are words you can Google and maybe come back another time. One thing, we will probably be tackling people who are in certain communities like the incels and the divestment and sex-based, agenda-based, groups where there doesn't seem to be a easy way to communicate. And what I'm finding, because obviously this Black Betterment has to be a Black Betterment angle, that all the once again, a lot of these movements have their root outside of the Black community. And if they don't have their root outside the Black community, somehow the solution is to actually be with non-Black people in some capacity. So this is something we have to address. Go ahead, brother IT3. Wait.
Yeah, when you put the title of the show for this evening was, we analyze differences between womanism and Black African feminism. So if the purpose of the evening was to analyze the differences, it's different than if you were to say, right, we're going to analyze if womanism can be a solution, or can feminism be a solution? You see, but otherwise we just kind of I can't really see the focus. See, if we're analyzing the differences, we're analyzing the differences to what end, to what purpose? If we see that there's a problem, we can say, right, can womanism help Black people solve the problem of white supremacy? Because obviously, if you solve the problem of white supremacy, then you'll have black betterment. You see the difference of the framing.
But we must say that the brother came in and he kind of changed up the whole, kind of emphasis of what the show could have the direction it could have gone into. So he kind of dominated a lot of the direction of discussion.
Right. Okay.
I know that the African womanism is the solution, because in Magura of Niger, she practiced it in the 19th century. Nanya Shantiwa, she did it as well. Taitu Bitu of East Africa, she did it as well. It is the solution. Queen Erewalo did it, and the list goes on. Chief Tinbua of Nigeria. It is the solution, but the point of this program was to, here's the thing, brother, Elder, right, is to get the African queens away from the ideology of the European and that. If we can get them away from that based upon genuine sincerity, Pan-Africanist principles, which they used to practice anyway, right, then that can help the black family. Because the African woman has done a lot of contribution in the wars, politically as well. And they use their amazing capacity mind to help them with their campaigning. So we need to get them back on the African womanism, which will lead to Pan-Africanism, for us to build the solution. Definitely African womanism solution.
Okay.
So family, we're going to have to end the show there because we try to keep it to but with any last things you brothers would like to say, brothers and sisters, of course, would like to say before we go, your last words?
Nice work. That's my last word.
Brother Cal, because we want women to go last in this one.
Brother, if you can make part 2 of this for next week, that will be a virtue. This is a very interesting topic, and I appreciate you formulating it. It needs a part 2. Could be even a trilogy. You never know.
That's right.
Part 2 next week needs to be back.
I definitely, if that's the case, I definitely would invite the sisters, because I would like the sisters to have their say. And one thing I would say, and this is the learning part, right? We're gonna have people, because we throw the link out, we're gonna have people jump on, and as a community speaking, we become used to each other. So we have to have a way of gauging new people and recognize that they might have some views that's completely in isolation to the direction we're going in, but we can't actually join them emotionally in what they're saying. We have to try to get them to our code and go, okay, well, here's what we believe. I think the brother even was saying something about he was best pleased with white supremacy. So even there already, there's a discussion that we probably, we need to have at some point. But what I'm saying is, it's more so to the women in the group. If men come in with a certain energy, try not to go with it. Not that any did, but it's just when you throw a link out there, it's the interweb. You never know where someone's coming from. You never know what they're going to do. Sister Shireen has gone back, unfortunately, but she already said enough good stuff. Next week we might visit it. I'm not too sure what we should say. If is womanism a solution for black? We have to formulate words. And hopefully, go on, brother Kel.
To cut you in that, bro. The reason I say it should be a part 2, right? Because this African womanism, bro, is powerful, bro. Seriously, like if you could ever go into the knowledge of it, it's powerful. And if we can get queens to get back into the Anna J. Cooper and the Charlotte Bass mindset, right, it can definitely work. I do believe it needs to be unpacked, and it does need to distinguish between the feminism. That's why I was saying, brother, it's a powerful show.
So would it be correct for me to say next week feminism versus womanism? Would that be an okay title? Would that
African womanism? Because you see, brother, the womanism, brother, all due respect to you, and that it's too vague, and that it needs capital on there. You see, when you say the African womanism,
that's right.
Understood.
Yeah.
From that,
otherwise others start coming into it.
Maybe I put African womanism versus European feminism. That might be
that's even better.
There you go. Okay, cool. We got okay, but like I said, Sister She Reigns is coming. The connection might go. So we'd like to have Sister She Reigns leave with her final thoughts. Sister She Reigns, anything you have to say?
Yeah, I echo what Brother Kale, a great contributor to the show, has said about this kind of being a discussion that needs to continue on in many different parts and maybe with just differing titles to it. But yeah, I think if it's we have to understand where thoughts lies with our brothers on these issues, but we also have to see or analyze the sisters' views as well.
Yes.
So I think if we could get some elder women onto the show to kind of talk about their experiences, then I think we could draw some comparisons as to how they can actually see how society has actually shaped the construct of the Black family or even Black individuals today. But it's also a technological thing as well, because I think that whereas before I was saying in the week, everybody would sit around in the living room watching one program and laughing and, kind of conversing over that same program. As time's gone on, everyone's gone into their own visual. And that has made us even more individual, which has also caused problems as well.
Good point. Yeah,
because we're very much singular. And also what I'm seeing as well is a lot of people talking about cutting people off. Someone's only in one's life for a reason and a season and all of this stuff, and people aren't really wanting to resolve, problem solve, forgive. And this is where we're probably having issues in relationships, where forgiveness is, and also trying to work things out is our issues, which we actually as families should be, or even as compadres, whatever, should be sitting down and advising and helping us to survive within, or have more longevity within our relationships. We don't do that no more. It's just a cancel culture. Just forget them. Do you know what I mean? If they're upset, yeah, exactly. Delete people, because we're too much in our own individualized.
Yeah.
I don't want to call it fantasy, but do you know what I mean? Inverted commas reality. And I think that we kind of have to really kind of look at all of these issues, the political issues, the economical issues, social and technological and also legal issues as well that we face, to kind of look at our environment, our international environments, also customs, cultures, and how that has really affected where we are. And also the impulsiveness of Americanization in the 90s, it was flooded on us, and that was very sexualized. You had Luke, you had 2 Live Crew, you had R. Kelly, you had all of these men and all of these Jodeci's and stuff, because I was speaking to someone else about that as well. And if you idolize these men who are very feminine, extremely feminine young men, as you go on, you're idolizing them, and as you go on, the masculinity of men and what you expect, it kind of it doesn't really mean much, because now you're looking at a man with masculine eyes. And I know I'm going into kind of like a rabbit tunnel with what I'm trying to say, but there are so many issues, and I think it will be very useful if we can, as time goes on, break them down really, so that we can help each other to understand each other.
Excellent.
Right.
What I would say as well before we go, the final click is, it's really good we have the last bit of the show. We're discussing future shows, and this should be a template that we do, and it should be, I'll throw the link out. So people who might not necessarily want to talk in the show, they're welcome to jump in on the link to actually maybe push forward ideas live for us to refine for next week's thing. That's something that I think could work well. Every kind of time we should give extra time to speak knowledge and bring balance more people. Yes. So one thing we definitely, like I said, women The women are always welcome on here, and we want to try to facilitate to make sure they feel comfortable. And let us always know how we can do that, because ultimately we're trying to fix any breakdowns between men and women, because you can't have a village if men and women can't talk that kind of stuff. So we'll sort that out. But for next week, guys, it's been claimed and it's been official. So we will be doing African womanism versus European feminism. And hopefully, you guys, you have 1 week homework to do your research, and hopefully you can invite other women and ladies on to discuss this fantastic topic. But until then, thank everyone.
How to win the fight. Yeah.
There you go. Till next week, family. Thanks everyone who came.
Have a good night.
Have a good
Good night,
night,
everybody. Take
All
care.
right, everyone.
Bye.